Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Hype or Not session. I'm Burak and Gökhan Karakuş is next to me. Today we're going to scrutinize the implementation of AI technologies in public sectors and question if they should be used in the first place, and highlight the ethical concerns it carries and its long-term implications and how it can affect governance processes. This session will be in English, and you will be invited to join our discussion with your comments. So this is a participatory section, so we'll be able to discuss the contents with you, and these are not only in the form of questions, but it will be also in the format of comments. So first of all, I wanted to make sure what we're talking about. When we consider artificial intelligence, this slide presents a spectrum of AI approaches from symbolic AI to deep learning. So historically, AI started with rule-based systems. You see on the green on the left side, known as symbolic AI, which includes areas like expert systems, knowledge graphs. So basically, when I studied computational design, the whole curriculum was based on that, with a little bit of hybrid AI with neural networks in them. So later on in the Oxford AI program, the whole hype was about machine learning. So machine learning is now the most significant subset of AI. So it encompasses various techniques, including supervised, unsupervised, and reinforced learning. Maybe you already heard about Roy Amara, so this quote is really relevant to the AI hype or not discussion, actually. So Roy Amara was a renowned American futurologist known for his insights into technology, and his law, as quoted, highlights a common human bias in estimating technological impacts. So he said, we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run. So here you see Roy Amara's law is a foundational concept visualized, which provides a critical lens for our expectations and reactions to our technologies. This law is especially relevant in the world of AI, given its advanced, rapid developments. So this chart is at the core of AI hype or not discussion, because basically this is Gartner's visualization showing us machine learning is actually standing out, positioned at the hype curve's peak, riding the wave. So this is actually one of the most credible consultation companies, which already claim that we are actually at the peak of machine learning hype. So there are phases at the bottom you can see, from innovation triggers to productivity plateaus. And as you can see, technologies mature and integrate into the society, and their impact becomes more relevant. So here I'm presenting a small table I made. It's a synthesis from this AI and Cities report by Mila and United Nations organizations. So it shows the AI's expansive role in urban contexts with main application areas including energy, mobility, public safety, water and waste management, healthcare, urban planning, and city governance. So here in this particular report, I think the potentials of participation is not addressed sufficiently. But however, each icon, as you see, highlights the risks and dangers that are presented. So among these are misalignment of AI and human values, potential societal harm, privacy, and even power grab by the AI, which means we will be losing control over what we are doing. So AI is a general purpose technology. This is very important to know. Just like electricity, we will see the results, how long it will take for the industrial and daily applications to become mainstream. AI's impacts will be multiplied with complementary technology and application methods. Among those are smart industry, wearables, smart city. AI-driven smart city will be the next phase, basically. So here I would like to take a small break for getting reflections from Gökhan, Karakuş, and then we'll get reflections from you in the form of comments.
Burak, your presentation lays out a kind of application curve for AI. How would you assess that by differentiating, and because here we're talking about the public sector, what do you think between the public and private sector, what do you think the interrelationships will be? Because obviously AI is being applied in the private sector today, and you outlined some dynamics for the public sector. So how would you sort of flesh out, what do you think the application public sector based on the application curve that you initially threw in there?
Yeah, actually, this is a very important question. As you see, most of the AI frameworks are developed privately. So, and these are put into action in public governance. So then we are having major issues with who's holding the data, privacy, ethical, responsible AI. And in this context, I think the former application is interesting. In the former session, we see universities or governmental organizations developing their own practices. So to go beyond full neoliberal privatization of AI.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I wanted to point at, because where the data is and how the data is organized, do you think that the public sector will be also sort of guided by the big tech companies? Is there a possibility to open source this through work with universities and municipalities?
Yeah, yesterday in one of the presentations, Techno-Feudalism book was mentioned, and I think this is a very big concern. This gives a huge power to big tech companies, which they can even also beyond AI power grab, we can talk about also private big technology power grab in this case. So I would like to now invite you to make comments or reflect on your own experiences or any concerns you would like to add. Microphone is open to you.
If not, I'd actually like to ask a question of my own.
Yes.
So AI governance I'm curious as to whether it's possible at all, because yes, certain AI models such as let's say GPT operates on a closed basis, and the tech is their own, you can't adjust it. That's the end of it. But there are also lots of open source models that you can use, and these are basically whatever you want to do. And it's at this point, I think it's impossible to block them, just control them, and you're pretty much free to train them as you like, as you fit, to whatever end you want. And in such a case, with the proliferation of open source AI models, I mean, I can just download it's going to be technical, but PyTorch file and develop my own model, and etc. Who's to govern it? I mean, who's to prevent me from sitting in front of my computer and doing whatever I want? And I don't even need an internet connection for that. So I'm curious as to whether this thing could be like governed in the first place, or any barriers could be set on them. Thank you.
Anyone wants to react to Selim? So Selim, I think there's an interesting factor there. We in some of the sessions we heard the term greenwashing. So there's also open source washing. So this open AI is constantly marketing its work as open source. However, none of us have this capacity, enormous computational capacity to train these models. So we can actually develop models, but also if you noticed, they are hosting these services. So everything is under their control. For instance, when I've been using ChatGPT or Poe, in this case, you see the model evolving and they are making changes on the go without necessarily getting your permission. So basically, this open source is a little bit of a part of the bubble hype, which I think people will then realize this enormous power these companies are getting through their both technological backend. So maybe I spoke too much. Gökhan, would you like to add anything?
You know, I'm a little bit older in this technology sector. I started with the rollout of the internet in the 90s, and I can just say from experience of seeing what happened there that, you know, there's always this kind of competition between these big tech companies trying to leverage as many users and data as possible. But there's always been, and I think this is for me an optimistic note, there's always been a group of coders, programmers, independent thinkers that are trying to do as much open source as possible. We have seen this since the beginning of the application of interface technologies, and even perhaps even before that. You know, for example, we first met at the Technical University in the 2000s working on something called processing in the Arduino board, which was a completely open source thing, which, you know, today is still open source. People are using it widely for art, architecture, and everything. And those initial studies show that, you know, there can, if you get a group of people behind it, and I think this is the same, as you just said, for AI and developing models and working open source. The problem will be in, I think, countries like Turkey, where it's always vendor-dependent technology application, how quickly at the university or at the institute level we can create some pilot projects that are vendor, that are not vendor-based. So,
outsourced.
Yeah, municipal governments, anybody that can sort of, on their own, using open source AI, do that. I think that's the critical point.
I think what Gökhan brought as an answer to Selim is actually the civic AI. So the importance of bottom-up developed and run AI mechanisms. And I think these are going to be more and more important, and we have to be, let's say, caring about all these implications, which I'll be going next, actually. Maybe you have already read about these risks, but maybe you have never seen the framework altogether. But AI has many, many risks. The first one is job displacement. So AI's automation could reduce employment in certain sectors. An important aspect of AI at the moment are computer vision applications. We saw an example in the former section. For instance, whenever I'm entering with my passport to Turkey, the number of automated passport checks are increasing. So for each of them, there are less and less police officers checking those. So these image recognition, face recognition is becoming more and more prominent. The same happens in Belgium. We have almost 12 electronic units, and then just 2 police officers are left in Belgium at the moment. So the second one is the bias. Actually, we already have biases in our everyday life, and these are a part of our lives. So when we are doing AI, when we train, when you use these biased data to train AI, so basically we replicate these biases. And there are some complex algorithms which I don't want to get in at this moment, but these biases may even be multiplied. So this is very well known and been mapped. The third one is privacy. This is the good old problem of technology that we have. And the fourth one is deep fakes. So after post-truth, there's a whole talk about a new form of truth being emerging. So this is deep fake AI truth, where we won't be able to almost discriminate between what is right and what is wrong, and where actually what is right or what is wrong becomes not important anymore. So then we lose interest, or we cannot engage with concepts and things anymore. The fifth one is persuasive AI. So, AI may actually sway human decisions. There are military applications that have been problematic, like in the media recently, there was a case where a drone has, in a military simulation, has destroyed its own communication tower to reach its goal. So it is basically the same story as Arthur C. Clarke's 2001. So in order to reach its goal, AI can actually eliminate humans. So this is a very important part. So of course, weaponization is that we are seeing more and more. And ethical issues are more about human rights, societal norms. And the last one is AI may actually really try to take control of the world through manipulating us, and through imagine if you have artificial general intelligence, you can easily see humans are a threat to Earth. So you may actually slowly manipulate them to take power in decision mechanisms, in governance. So more and more, these are being discussed. Gökhan, want to add anything? Or
yeah, this bias thing is very important for countries like Turkey because the data is biased. I think, as I said, my experience in the Turkish internet over the last 25 years, unfortunately, the Turkish internet, Turkish language data, Turkish language images, when compared to, obviously, English, it's very minor. The ability to write or pursue AI through the Turkish language right now is difficult and shows the inherent bias because the data is already biased. So, ya bunu Türkçe olarak söyleyeceğim. Durumumuz pek iyi değil o konuda yani. Türkçe data eksik olduğu için bizim AI ile Türkçe yapabileceğimiz işler çok kısıtlı. Because our data in both the Turkish language and Turkish categorization, everything on top of that is very limited. Our ability to do anything in AI in Turkish is biased against it. And this is something that has to be addressed at the national level.
Any reflections from the audience? All right, so Selim, let's move on then. Let's bring some hope to the discussion because it's becoming like really boring. So what are the frameworks addressing the AI hype? So lately, so we are basically riding this AI wave. So we are at the top of this wave. So how do we avoid being overwashed by this wave? So there are some frameworks that aim to address these human-centered AI, responsible and ethical AI, and trustworthy AI are a few of these I would like to mention. So first of all, the human-centered AI emphasizes designs and systems that prioritize human needs and values, encompassing society, citizens, and data service ecosystems. That's what Gökhan has mentioned. Actually, since AI is completely data dependent at the moment, because machine learning models is not a top-down model, it's a bottom-up model. So in this case, which data we are using and how it can be responsible as a web of agents that, together with the service ecosystems, interlinked with citizens and society, that is really important. So focusing on responsible data practices, ensuring trust, accuracy, and also the society's intricate connection between these elements are important for transparency, inclusion, and communication. There are different visualizations of this human-centered AI. There's a Chinese famous researcher from the HCI field who emphasized human control, ethical practices, and human-centric decision-making. usability and explainability are foundational in this schema. So basically, I would like to quickly address the issue of explainability. So in the machine learning algorithms, so when you use them, I am actually a user of Microsoft Azure with this, using it for training images. And in this case, when there's a result, due to the design of the neural networks, it's very difficult to explain why the result is in that way. When there's a decision made, explainability is very low because all the decisions are like small elements of a very large network. And bringing all these small decisions into a bigger one and explain it is exactly very difficult. So in this case, it creates a problem of accountability. So what if AI makes a mistake? And what if we don't understand why it made that decision? There's this famous Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book, maybe you know it. They ask for what's the meaning of life, and it just returns 42. So, so this is actually a very similar part. So we don't know what 42 is, why. and so bridging explainability gaps is vital for AI's broader acceptance and trust. So here's the discussion part quickly for a brief intermission. You want to add anything, Gökhan?
When you mentioned the Hitchhiker's Guide, this 42, I find a lot of people who use this ChatGPT and don't, for example, I see a lot of people translating, but then they don't bother to check the translation. So it gives them this kind of superpower, but they don't know how to control their superpower. So I wonder, you know, how that can be addressed. I mean, people are doing things they shouldn't be able to do, but they are.
Yeah, especially in academia at the moment, it's a huge problem. So I am, for instance, editing a special issue for the IJAC journal, and there I have a paper submission that it really reads like it is AI. So, but at this moment, we do a Turnitin check, but the Turnitin is saying AI is not really, AI detection is not 100%. So here we are also split in between. So there are ideas of the author, very clear, author works in that subject, but how do we deal with ethical concerns and if we cannot really understand if a text is made by AI or not? So this complicates also the peer review processes. It will actually be, I think, game-changing in the field of intellectual exchange. Most likely, papers and all these proprietary technologies may not be the future of knowledge exchange anymore. So we may be more open source, discussing elements of ideas, collaborating, and if you actually go to Web of Science and search for ChatGPT, you can see many articles where ChatGPT is referenced as a co-author. So that is very interesting. It will be very interesting how many citations it will get.
Interesting enough, you know, when you chat the citations within ChatGPT, we're kind of convincing ourselves because the citations are then being indexed by ChatGPT and other things that those are real. So this is also problematic. I mean, within ChatGPT, these false citations are creating their own world, which I think is scientifically problematic.
There's hallucinatory citations. So it's like if you try to make it cite something, it creates hallucinations. But also, you know, there are these repeating terms it uses, for instance, as an AI language model. So the poor part is when you go to Google Scholar and search as an AI language model, in quotes, you find hundreds of papers right now. So people don't even bother, like just copy-paste from ChatGPT. But I believe in the future, technologies will be able to detect those even more. So I think the people who are publishing at this moment. So, but again, this is a question of responsible AI. So we also have individual responsibility for plagiarism, right? So I think we are just now pointing fingers at private sector, government to regulate, but what is our responsibility in this case as a practitioner? So it's because not different than stealing, actually, right? Any remarks on this?
I think I missed my chance when you asked for remarks in previous, but my question is regarding the risks of AI, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I should have asked this before, but anyway. I will give you a specific example, but my question is eventually my question would be, how do you correct obvious misrepresentations or deepfakes when you see one? But here's an example that I myself encountered. I think it was Bing or some Microsoft, whatever, AI software that came up on my computer, and I didn't know why it came up. Anyway, it said, ask me any question. I guess Bing. So I asked questions about Turkey, and it gave me some answers, but after some questions and answers, it was obvious that it was responding with facts or pseudo-facts or whatever in favor of the ruling government, AKP in particular. And I said, where did you get that information? That's not wholly true. There are other opposing facts. He said, I follow the best-selling newspapers, and that's where I get my... I said, which best-selling newspapers? And listed 3, Yeni Şafak, Sabah, and Hürriyet. I said, there are other newspapers that give opposing views. He says, I just follow these best-selling 3. I said, check the others. He said, no, I don't need to. And I couldn't believe that. That's my question. How do you correct such misrepresentations?
Yeah, there has been some scientific work using ChatGPT to answer political questions. So there are, from political sciences, ways to evaluate political tendencies. So currently, for instance, ChatGPT's mapping is currently on the left liberal part. So, but there are other different forms, Bing and other ones, they return different results. So it's not difficult to imagine that in the future, countries like China, more closed models, they may also implement these models based on their ideology. So this would not be so different than, because it's trained by the data that's given to them. And there can be also additional layer of training given as instructions. So for instance, if I want to make discussions on particular topics, on political topics, when these are about certain, let's say, radical left topics, you see that there are some instructions given, so always trying to balance the results. So it is, so there are very clear instructions running on these Microsoft, both ChatGPT, that are actually regulating our interactions. But we don't know what those instructions are. And the second thing you mentioned is also the whole internet is scraped to train those models. So in the end, now more and more up-to-date layers are going. So which media resources are they going? So we are in an era of post-truth. So is it also absorbing unreliable news sources? So then, but also the way it communicates is that it is so confident on itself. So it's like it speaks like an authority, but in the end, it's very convincing. That's also very scary. So in the end, it is coming down to ethical AI from the company's own governance perspectives, which Gökhan is going to mention even more. So the companies have also responsibility in this case, and governments need to monitor and evaluate. So Gökhan, what do you think?
Obviously, at the government layer, there needs to be an AI, not regulatory board, but a commission for ethics. I know that this kind of commission exists in the United States, and interestingly enough, the person that's head of that is a Turkish-American person. So this kind of non-governmental authority needs to exist to be able to sort of do some traffic control of what's going on. In a country like Turkey, is this possible with this political climate and this setting? I'm not so sure. You know, issues of transparency and scientific veracity are problematic in Turkey at the present moment, especially at the university level, with issues of plagiarism and things like this. So, you know, Turkey is in a kind of slippery slope here. Because this AI is very much, as we know, is data-driven. But if the data is skewed and biased and is full of repeats and plagiaristic things, it's just going to make it more difficult to figure out. You know, the learning part of machine learning is not going to happen very well.
So Gökhan, a suggestion in that case, in some frameworks I've seen, all organizations need to also set up their own local AI communities.
Yeah.
So you are at the moment practitioners, academics here. So maybe people who are you know, educated or who are learning about AI, or we will need to educate ourselves even more. And these like ethical committees that we have in universities, do you think it's a good idea? And it
I
could
think
work
that's the only possibility. I mean, we're here talking about AI in an urban forum. You know, I know that there's a couple of sectoral groups working in AI, mainly scientific programming based. I don't see the social side, and I think, you know, the Ombudsman Office of universities and these kind of things seems to be one of the few places to go with this. My anticipation is like that it will probably happen when there is some major crisis regarding AI. Something really bad is going to happen, some kind of catastrophe is going to happen, and then they're going to say, how come nobody figured out that there was the AI was responsible for this? So hopefully it's not something that takes lives or anything, but I anticipate some kind of major collapse crisis in Turkey involving AI in the next few years. And then after this thing happens, there'll be some kind of awareness, and a group will kind of come around and organize something.
Yeah, there was a recent discussion about, for instance, self-driving cars. So in this case, if there's an accident, who is responsible for it? Is the software developer responsible? Is the car factory, is, let's say, Tesla or any other companies? But also, in many cases in the US, there's someone sitting in the driver's seat. So this maybe person could have taken control and maybe avoided. So these are very complex cases expected from us. So I think also trying to solve every problem with AI is like, you know, there's this song, If I Had a Hammer, you know, because like, I think this is one of the main concerns now, which I would like to quickly bring in, because I'm eating Gökhan's time a little bit. So this responsible AI framework is by PricewaterhouseCoopers, and here there's a very interesting part about problem definition. So here it asks, does a problem really warrant an AI ML solution? Do we need to really solve every problems with AI? So this is a very important question we need to ask. Just because we can doesn't mean that we should. So this also brings up the necessity for continuous validation of AI models. We see on the right side, validation and monitoring are important aspects. So these models, how do they work? Let's say we implement it in the informal urbanism network, and how did it detect it? So were there problems? What was the impact on the people there? So what's the social layer of it? And also policy and regulation. So we have in the field of technology, so Gökhan knows longer than me, we have a huge problem on technology going always ahead of regulation. So that is even can be considered a business model, even so that, let's say, if you take Facebook as an example, how the whole private data has been monetized. So in AI, we are also seeing maybe similar situations where many writers have been complaining their whole books have been scraped. And not a single penny is being paid to them.
A lot of designers' work has been taken and not money's been given to them, so it's a problem.
Recently, for instance, I've heard Zaha Hadid's office, for instance, famous passed away architect, has contacted Stable Diffusion. So when you write basically Zaha Hadid, it basically eliminates.
Right.
So you know, certain architects' names are also being filtered. So this is actually a concern of.
Yeah, but you can get around that, obviously. I mean, you can create your own model
Yeah,
without having
parametric, futuristic looking, you know, but you'll come to those points, I think so. And the last framework I would like to frame is the Oxford University's Trustworthy AI Network. So this is the program that I've recently studied, and there actually, this is another way to ride the hype wave. So while employing AI, we need to be careful in not getting washed over by the wave, and we need to prevent harm. So individual responsibility that we need to prevent harm ourselves. And second thing is ensuring fairness and equality. So this is exactly what the former presentation was about. So while if you are an urban planner, if you're into governance, city governance, so if you make a mapping tool of all informal settlements, how do we ensure human agency, safety, transparency, avoid discrimination, and enable accountability? So let's say something wrong happened there, who is responsible? So who made the mapping? Who is the main agent? So the last slide from my side will be some small conclusions about, I think to ride the AI hype wave, we need to educate ourselves. First, educate our whole, you know, group of staff members that are working on these topics. Also, we need to encourage a critical approach, as we are trying to do, set some realistic expectations. So this is the main aspect of the hype wave, right? We should not be going over realistic and over expected. So develop governance and ethical guidelines, and feedback loops are important with people. So what do people think about it, and prioritize the long-term value. So I want to finish with famous designer, architect, urban planner, Cedric Price. Question like technology is the answer, but what was the question? So this is quite interesting. So anybody wants to add anything?
Okay. Thank you, Burak. That was...
There's a comment from that side.
Oh, comment, sorry.
Yeah.
Yapay zekanın risklerinden bahsettik ama yani özellikle birkaç sıralamayla işte askeri veya etik problemler, ama biz yapay zekanın öğreticileri olarak çocukları ve öğrenen sayarsak onda da bir risk var. Yani bu kadar riske odaklanıp yapay zekanın sınırlarını belirlemeye çalışmak biraz kontrolcü bir duruma geliyor. Yani nasıl birisini yetiştirirken
AI seems too much controlling, because when you're raising, educating someone, I mean, of course, you cannot control to the fullest. There are social and environmental factors. So that's how the artificial intelligence is. I mean, fearing from it so much, or just trying to define the limits, the borders. Maybe it's essential to set the right rules to teach it. Even in the most advanced countries in the world, although there is a freedom of expression, there is a legislation. So if you set the right boundaries and the rules, then AI can be developed in a controlled manner and can be used at home. That's my comment. Especially, well, that risk part, I mean, that's we're very anxious part, we're very concerned part. I mean, that bothered me to some extent, so I just wanted to make that comment. Anyone would like to add on that? Let's not call it fear or concern. I guess we have to be somewhat vigilant. I mean, Burak's example, for instance, a Tesla car, then who will be the responsible when there is something wrong? If there is no responsible, then you cannot, draw conclusions and you cannot advance. I think that's a huge uncertainty, in my opinion. It's essential to be cautious, vigilant against that uncertainty. Well, yes, I agree to the fact that there are different paradigms, maybe more controlled, more open, or so on and so forth. Yes, but in abroad, and especially, for instance, when I worked in this AI program, half of the program focused on these risks. I worked in the field of technology in the past too. I think the risks of AI, for instance, many things I've said about the internet. First, I believe in the year 2000 there was this clock time issue, but the apparent risks were never risks that would bring humanity to an end. So yes, that's a serious problem. I mean, the more we talk.
So I want to talk a little bit in a short presentation about AI, the public sector, and architecture, and I kind of divided into two sections. I wanted to present some material about how AI is being applied in the public sector. But before I want to go into my presentation, I want to ask the audience how many people have used ChatGPT for work in the last month or school, like, so pretty much everybody, or most people. How many people have used any other AI tool, such as text-to-image software? So there we have less people. Has anybody used any other AI outside of these two areas? Say them, Nick kullandı. Speech to text, okay. Başka? Translation, okay. So, you know, like we can see here in this short thing that we're using AI already. So the question is, how and what is this AI good for? And how can we start to understand? This is a conference on governments and urban settings, so I'm going to speak a little bit about that. But the issue for me is right now this piece of software is being used, and it's being used for work, it's being used for education, and now we're trying to figure out how we can use it for government, because I think, as Burak mentioned, you know, we live in a kind of neoliberal system, and neoliberal system means that big high-tech companies control a lot of how we use technology, but also how we use data. And I think it's, as we can see now, the governments need to step in a little bit more to, because governments are responsible for very complex things in our life. For example, after this, I have to get on a subway, to get on to another train, to get on a plane, and this is all very much managed by governmental associations, and these things cannot be managed by the private sector. So this important part of AI. So how do we go about doing this? We need a vibrant AI ecosystem. You know, people both talking about AI and AI discussions, AI at the university level, et cetera. We need to launch a national level AI programs. I'm not sure if there is one in Turkey, an AI national level program, if anybody knows about one. Var mı bilen şey yapan bu konuda?
The Office of Presidency has published a document on ethical use of, the proper use of AI and the strategic plan for the next 3 years from 2021 until 2024. So
So there is a
government
document.
is definitely, yes, keeping
It's a
track
strategy
of it.
document, which is part of my presentation. Yeah, and also an AI authority, setting up an actual authority group within government. So these are the steps that here in Turkey we need to take, but these also apply not at the national level, but also at the local government level. So anything, these strategies, which I'm going to go into both governmental. Here we can see, I just wanted to show this is from McKinsey, and we're looking at their analysis of the application of AI to some countries in the Gulf, and we can see here that there is a impact potential of 9% of GDP, 9%, translating into $71 billion. So this is a serious governmental money issue, budget issue. And for Saudi Arabia, oil and gas, public sector, how it works in manufacturing, which is sort of one of their new areas. If we look for another example, a smaller country, the United Arab Emirates, again, impact potential 10%, $43 billion. So for Turkey, I would estimate our impact potential to be somewhat in this area, somewhere around 10, perhaps even more, because we have more manufacturing, which is very AI data-based. This issue of data, so AI is already data-defined. AI already is data-defined. So data is where this all starts. And without data, AI cannot exist. We need to talk about how data can support artificial intelligence. So we need to know what this data is, make agencies aware of this data and where its sources are. Understood, how users and leaders can understand that data exists there and how we can, where it's coming from, who used it, who changed it, as well as its format, size, and potential. If anybody using Stable Diffusion, one of the things I like to do is go figure out which of the data pools it's using and actually just kind of walk around it, because you get to see where it's coming from. It's highly instructive. Availability, where it lives, hosting, where its users are, and how analysts can do AI, using AI work, can get access to that data. What's something Burak talked about, fit for purpose. What are the goals? Is there sufficient quality, variety, and scale to make that AI applicable? And is it secure? For example, Burak made the example of Sahadid architects going to Stable Diffusion and saying, take this out. So that security level, being able to adjust that with compliance to either civil rights, private rights, privacy regimes, this is very important. So going back to data, this is again from the McKinsey report. So if we want to create deep learning, and this is where I think we need to, at the university level, start to understand what we're doing is, what kind of data do we have? Do we have deep learning on images? We have millions of images, right? But do we have millions of images on a computer at Istanbul Technical University? I doubt it. Where do these millions of images exist, and how can we create them? Last night I was at the conference dinner, and I sat next to the conference photographer, whose name is Gökhan. And Gökhan is a photographer, and his father is a photographer. And he was talking about how he had his father's image database sitting in slides in his house. So these kind of databases exist, but getting them into data is a key issue. So the differentiation between deep learning, artificial neural networks, and classifications, this is a key technical aspect of what we do. You'll see in a couple of the things talking about deep. Deep seems to be the conversation. They didn't mention strategy. So after we figure out how much data we have, is it accessible, where it's sitting, who's responsible for it, we need to figure out some kind of strategy, right? So the governmental strategy What is our vision for AI? Where should we focus our investment? It takes, obviously, like any software project, some investment. Which applications and processes? You need to use some kind of technology. Which technology you're going to deploy? We're supporting the use of open source stable diffusion type for images, but there's a bunch of other open source technology we can use. Management, who's going to manage this? You have this ability through the Turkish IT sector, I think it works at a pretty high level, but it needs some other strategies and organizations there. And lastly, technology-wise, what's the data, what's the tech stack there, and what systems will be used to implement this? We don't really know that yet. What kind of things can be done? Government can use AI to deliver human service in 3 main areas: mission focus, back office, and customer engagement. Mission focused, inspection, enforcement, disease surveillance. I remember during the pandemic, there were models that were used to figure out the number of incidents of COVID in certain urban areas. And this is the kind of thing we're talking about, and those urban areas happen to be the more dense urban areas. Customer engagement, Burak talked about, how applications, but when you come in to Turkey, passports, things like this is very, this automation aspect. And lastly, back office. So, this is actually, if we look at this is very similar to what we see in any actually software enterprise level program. It's the same thing, but it's taking these already existing IT models and trying to figure out how to make them more efficient. So, I think the revolutionary capability of AI through things like computer vision, identifying people through surveillance footage, natural language processing. In a country like Turkey today, we have people coming from all over the world, from Africa, Asia, and Europe. And so there's a cacophony of language I hear often. You hear Russian to Arabic to Slovak. You don't know what's going on. So in a country like Turkey, this ability to kind of perhaps use that to translate is a key issue. Speech recognition, machine translation for all types of areas, important. Rule-based systems and machine learning, and obviously robotics is something that we deal with a lot in Turkey. The Turkish manufacturing sector has a huge application of robotics, and I think this will be, if you ask me in the next 5-10 years where AI is going to be the most effective in Turkey, it will be through robotics, because robotics already exist at a huge scale in the Turkish industrial sector. So any comments about any of this?
Okay, in general, AI is used as an assistant to a human or to government or institution, and many times it's used as a in the decision-making process, in the decision-making loop. In that case, I say the final decision should not rest on AI's results. It must almost always be the human that makes the final decision. And that's what actually, 2 years ago, I was at a military conference of NATO, and that's what the commanders there always stress. In the command and control loop, the human makes the final decision. AI is just an assistant or maybe advisor. That's my comment.
That's problematic, because if certainly decisions, but critical decisions you can flag and say there needs to be human operating. But there are certain decisions that are perhaps initially you don't think are too important, and like, oh, this decision, let the AI make it. And potentially those types of decisions could also create problems. So, figuring out at the human control aspect of the process, if you use too much human interaction, then it doesn't really make sense to use AI. So this ability to figure out exactly when and how, I think, is going to be problematic.
Well, it's a case-by-case basis, I guess. Well,
Yeah, I mean, as I said, you don't want, you know, maybe the person that was figuring out the software for the Tesla driving things, oh, this is a minor issue, and then all of a sudden it's like not, you know, the machine is working on its own. You know, having been in the technology sector for a long time, I'm not as, you know, willing to let AI do too much at this point, especially in sort of very critical areas, because I think the potential for some mishap with regard to data being corrupt or feedback loops can be important. Okay, so I have 5 minutes left, so I'll finish with what I actually did in AI. So I started in AI about 2-3 years ago, and I work with this an architecture office helping the GAD Foundation, this Gökhan. So this is about 3 years ago. We decided to try to figure out, because the office GAD works with trying to develop new forms of architecture, and we thought, let's take some of the visual language that the office has produced already and see if we can get AI to produce other iterations of it. And we did this using NVIDIA's style GAN2. So this was about 3 years ago. I don't know if anybody used these GANs back then, but this is how this all started. We started with our own model. We came up with, I think, 500. It's a neural network model, so you can teach it. You don't need millions. You need like 500. It doesn't do categorization, but it did do this, and it created these three sketches. And Gökhan said, you know, he did these sketches better than I would have done it. So this kind of learning, we called it deep because it was, we thought that's what it was, but it's actually, this is not deep. This is more neural network, kind of mid-range work. So just in the last 2 or 3 months, another architecture office. This is an architecture office in Austria called Club Himmelblau, Wolf Prix. So what they did, it was something similar. They tried to figure out if they can create architecture based on their old architecture. So what they did was they took all their forms, you see on the left-hand side, modeled them three-dimensionally, and then tried to extrapolate them into form, as you see on the right-hand side. So this is an animation, I don't have the video for it, but taking all these three-dimensional shapes that they had, creating a database of them, about, I think, a few thousand of these, and then having the AI create what they call a deep Himmelblau universe. So this word deep. And this building looks like a building that they would have designed, but they didn't design it. The deep Himmelblau AI designed it. And it's, interestingly enough, these are, hold on, these are these are three-dimensional, right? So they're using, right now there's an interface between Rhino, which is one of the software we use, and Stable Diffusion. So you can interface these two things back and forth. So these are three-dimensional models. And then you can create architecture like this. So you don't actually have to sit there and design it. So what's the purpose here? That's allowing the office to figure out new forms for their architecture based on their old architecture by teaching the machine how to look at it. And lastly, this is my own work as a designer. I was trying to figure out public space, because I like to work in public space. I have curated public space often. And one of the problems I always have is, you know, is to design sculpture for public space. Like, you have a problem of size, scale, density, and I was trying to figure out, I also work in another area called biophilic design, so I was trying to figure out what I could create that was as complex as nature, but can fit in a public space. So the parameters I was using are between solid and void, and between kind of more stochastic, chaotic patterns versus more structured patterns. So these are the kind of things that I was able to produce. These, I usually use Stable Diffusion, but these were done through Midjourney. So, you know, between fullness versus thinness, between a base versus just sitting in, between the relationship between the trees in the back and in the front, relationship to nature and complexity, and also human interaction, like how can we make this at a human scale. So this is based on AI, machine learning, and my own parameters. So, these are very buildable. When I do AI, I try to make sure that these things are always very buildable, so that in the future, if I wanted to sit down and model this in Rhino, it was possible. So I felt that this was a successful operation, and I'm planning on making these kind of small scale sculpture-wise, and hopefully one day build them in public space in a major city or in a minor city. If anybody wants to help, any municipality is here, we can work on putting these two things together. So that's my discussion. That's my presentation. If anybody has any comments for either me or Burak, we're happy to respond.
There's one question. Yes. And
Hi, it's also more related also with copyrights, how AI is managing this, because it's taking information from really different pool of knowledge, I think you call it. For one side is copyrights, because it never say from where it take it or from which was the person who did it. And also the other thing that I'm a bit worried is the bias that you're talking about, because most of some specific knowledge is more, let's say, westernized, or more, let's say, westernized. So it can be a lot of bias also related with maybe even gender bias. So how AI can be maybe trained, or how we can address this part.
The copyright, it's a very hot issue, and right now I think it went to the United States. I go back and forth to the United States a lot. The Supreme Court has now decided that AI images at a certain, and you should look at the case, cannot be copyrighted. So this is an issue, but my belief is somebody that works with AI also to create images, is that I have the ability, with my knowledge and design abilities, to create something that's not linked to anybody else's work through using AI. But I can see how, plagiarism and obviously Zaha Hadid architects Patrick Schumacher have decided that they will take direct action. So I think copyright is going to be an issue, but you can always walk around the copyright, by doing it yourself. So it's going to be an issue for many, many years.
yeah, actually, what the training data does is you train the data, but the resulting thing is a model. So it never creates exactly the same thing. So it makes it a little bit difficult for copyright owners. But at the moment, we need to have this ethical, responsible practices where if an artist's work is used, this person needs to be paid, like Spotify or something. So these are new models that we need to make sure not to disempower artists, actually, at the point. Yeah, the same with architecture and urban planning, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously architecture, people are taking Zaha Hadid's styles and applying them to their own work and not, saying it looks like Zaha Hadid. So this is going to be problematic. Not that that didn't exist before. I mean, people have always been, creative people have always been inspired from previous people's work. Nobody is creating work from zero, like I invented this. So obviously, stylistically, it can look a little bit close. I can see that, oh, this is very close to this. But I don't think in an age where hip-hop in the 1980s in America took every single sample from jazz music and changed it, that we can argue that AI needs to be super policed about using other people's stuff. My suggestion for copyright is to use another technology called NFTs and take every single image you produce, make an NFT out of it, and put it on the internet, because that lives there for many, many years. So it's very clear who made that image, when they made the image, and you're not, you don't need hosting for it. Like, oh, my hosting disappeared. you know, it sits there on the internet, an NFT for 40, 50 years. It's going to sit there. So I think that's to solve is to claim your own intellectual property by registering it on the internet under your name, and then if you're a serious person, make an NFT out of it. That way, you will have no problems.
Thanks, Gökhan. Selim is pointing out that we ran out of time.
Thank you very much,
for your
Selim,
presentation.
Burak, Marmara Urban Forum, for hosting us.